You're listening to your boy C-Roc on the What Are You Made Of with Mike C-Roc podcast. Got a great topic today I want to talk about. Continuing into my intro to this whole What Are You Made Of movement. I want to talk to you today about culture and the importance of culture. And it could be your business, it could be your life, it could be your family, any relationships you have socially. But culture is so important, and I'm going to go into why and some stories on that. But before I do that, I want to thank Nations Lending for sponsoring the What Are You Made Of podcast with Mike C-Roc. Nations Lending, home loans made human, all residential mortgages, helping out in, I believe, 49 states now. So excited to be partnered up and have them as a sponsor of our podcast. They've been an integral part of getting this off the ground and getting it running. So thank you, Nations Lending. Any of your home loan needs, please reach out to me, to my team. We'd be happy to assist and give you some honest help regarding to home financing. So with that being said, here with you today, talking about culture. And I'm going to go back to a story of mine when I was in a previous mortgage company. We were started out in a cube farm type situation, like a boiler room, on the phone, calling refinance leads. And we had about, I would say, 15 to 20 guys and gals working, hitting the phones, dialing away, trying to help people refinance and save money. And we would have great months, huge months. People would be making money by helping people out. But one of the things is it wasn't the perfect culture, but it was definitely a good culture to blow up in and really have fun going to work and be productive, be successful. And we kept stats back then. We gave out awards. When someone had a big month, we'd have the big lotto checks that we'd do a little ceremony. If somebody made a big figure month commission-wise, man, we'd get that big checks out. We'd make a big deal, rah-rah. And you know what? It's a little corny, but it really matters, man. We fed off of that. Each of us wanted to get a big check. And we gave out Loan Officer of the Month awards, Loan Officer of the Year awards. Everybody was vying for that number one spot. And then during that period of time, we had a lot of fun. A lot of, success was had. But in 2008, or leading up to 2008, they had the housing crisis, the mortgage crash, so to speak, and we all felt it. And some changes need to be made in the industry, but everybody had to get licensed, had to go through a standardized licensing process, and a lot of people that were in our group and a lot of people around the industry fell out of the business because they couldn't get licensed, they didn't want to, they couldn't pass the test, whatever the reason was. And we probably went from about 20 LOs to about 5. It was that big of a drop off. And when that happened, a lot of people got out of the business, but a lot of the people that were in the business still struggled and trying to find their way. There was a lot of products that went away in the mortgage business, a lot of more restrictions added, LTV restrictions, which is loan to value. And a lot of stuff went away at that moment. And I remember losing a lot of friends that I worked with every day, not seeing them anymore. And the culture died from that point. And the company that I was working with, I won't name them right now. Those of you know me know what it was. That company did not do anything. And I'm going to take full responsibility for this. I wasn't in management at that point. But our culture died. There was no more big checks being given out. Income was a lot less because of the market. But there was no awards given out. We didn't keep stats on anything at that point. It was kind of like just scrimp and scrape. Let's figure out how we can survive this, because none of us wanted to get into a different profession. And so we just kind of, I guess we turned into survival mode at that moment. And so back in, I would say went through that for a couple years. And then around 2011, I came in the office and I've been talking to Chris Short, my partner, about this, hey man, let's open up our own branch. Let's go out on our own. Let's do something. I mean, we got to do something. We can't just sit here. We can't do what we're doing right now. It's not working. And so one day he came into work and he said, "Hey man, I'm ready to move. Talk to my wife. Let's hit the road, man. Let's go for it." And we wanted to move towards the beach in Maryland, towards Ocean City, Maryland, which is more laid back area than where we were in Annapolis. And at that moment, I said, all right, man, let's do this. And we are going to have obstacles. We're going to have tough spots. But we're either going to go through them, around them, or over them. We're not going to let anything stop us. And we need to understand that and commit to that right at this moment. And this is all on the same day that he told me he was ready to roll. His wife was ready to pick up and move, sell their house. And I didn't waste time when he told me that because I didn't want him to change his mind. And I was ready to go full force, full steam ahead. And again, I didn't know how I was going to do it or how we were going to do it or exactly. I just had this in our head that we were going to make things happen. And then we were going to figure it out as we went along. Now, we had no mentors at that time, and we should have actually sought out mentors. The ownership of the company basically told us he thought we were going to fail, but he would back us because really he had no other choice. And, of course, that's another thing that reminded me of my original story about how my dad crumpled up a $100 bill at me and said I was going to be living on the streets with my mom one day. The owner of that company not having faith in us and thinking that we were going to fail, I could have reacted two different ways. Of course, I'm the kind of guy that's going to prove him wrong. Stubbornness to a fault sometimes. I was going to prove him wrong and told him to get his popcorn ready. So what we did was we went out 2011. I talk about my old buddy Joe, my business mentor, had the water treatment company that I worked for before. He had an office space in Salisbury, Maryland that he was going to rent us out. And we put 2 desks in this little office and we started our business. And we started grinding and really, really going at it. And there was a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of stress. We put our family's finances and the whole thing on the line. We put it up and we committed. And then what we did from there, we started figuring out, okay, we got to have some kind of culture. And we started really searching out for the right people, one person at a time. We knew that we couldn't do it ourselves. If we wanted to grow and scale, we had to have people. So we started adding one person at a time. And we got this lady named Beverly. Had never been in the mortgage business before. She had some paralegal background. And, you know, I like the idea of doing that where we could train her from the ground up, get her training from the ground up from other people that we didn't have, you know, the topics that we didn't have, and then groom her into our culture of what we were looking to do. And Beverly is still with us now today. It's 2011. This happened, and we're 2019. So she's been with us 8 years now, just over 8 years. And that's the first employee that we started with. And then we just started gradually adding one. And I can tell you over the years, and it's been now 8 years since we've been doing this, we haven't lost one employee that we really didn't want to lose. I think of maybe one possibility, but it wasn't a good fit anyway. But all employees that are still with us are the ones we wanted. The ones that left, really, we were kind of dealing with having them in our culture, even though they may have produced, because we thought production was more important than culture. And these are some lessons that we learned over this period of time from 2011 till today. So I want to share this with you today on today's show. So we didn't really understand. We knew we had to have a good culture. We just didn't understand exactly all that went into it. We're still learning today, but there's some big things that we've grown into and came about seeing how it works. And I want to share this with you because you can put this in your business. You can put this, if you're an employee, you can make the place that you work a better place to work for other people around you by thinking about some of these things that I'm going to talk about. In your family, you can work with your family and develop a better culture in your family. And no matter how good you get at this, you're never going to be perfect. You should always be working. I just posted a quote today about culture. And it basically said, no matter how great you have it right now, if you don't have a great culture or continue to work on your culture to make it great, you won't be around long. And so that's something that we've come to realize. So while we were at the other company, I should say, sorry about that. When we were at the other company, there were some people that worked with us that weren't didn't have the culture in mind, didn't care about the team. They were all me people, worried about themselves. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? And there was a lot of manipulation that went on, and it was all about themselves and instead of the team. And we had no culture, really. We tried to develop some culture, but the reason that it didn't take hold is because we didn't put our foot down and lay the groundwork and commit to it and say, you're either going to do this or you're not going to work here anymore. And it has to be this certain way because otherwise it's not going to work. And will have success when you don't have good culture. If you don't commit to good culture, you will have some short-term success. And just because you're having some short-term success does not mean that you're going to be continuing to have that success. One, building a good foundation. Two, and three, at some point when you don't have a good culture and if you have the wrong people and places that work with you, it's going to come back to bite you. There's people who are going to look out for themselves. When a tough decision comes their way, they're going to pick the wrong decision, and it's going to affect the team and your company and your culture. So when we made a switch to Nations Lending back in 2018 February, we understood that, hey, listen, we need to lay this groundwork. We're not going anymore with just producers that don't care about the team. We'd rather have people that need to work on themselves, need to better their professional abilities, their skills, but have the team in mind and have great culture in mind. And that's the route we would rather go with than just bringing producers in that didn't care. We started at that moment, February 2018, of having basically putting building blocks together for a great foundation so that as we go through the tough times takes to build a business, that we could get through it with a great foundation and great people. And we all understood what we're trying to do, the target that we were going for, the big goal, the big vision, and we were all on the same page. So that took about 2018, probably took about a good 6 to 8 months to get everybody bought in. And we're still working on buying in constantly. We still work on the culture, but really to establish it, I would say it was probably the fall of last year is when it really kicked in. And we started adding some integral parts of our team, some non-me people, team people. And once everybody started buying in one after the other, this snowball's starting to take effect. And I talk about the snowball all the time, but the snowball's starting to take effect, and it gets bigger and bigger, and everybody starts feeding off each other. Now, as we go through this and we're building our culture, daily we still have to watch and hold each other accountable, call each other out when we're falling off the culture, the idea of the culture that what we're trying to do. Because one little slip up or one little thing that slides becomes contagious like a virus throughout your organization. So we have to be very, very conscious of it. It's kind of like when you go into an area and a hospital sometimes and they have MRSA going around and everybody's got to wash their hands. Everybody's got to wear masks. Everybody's got to be really, really highly sensitive to anything that can affect the culture in a negative way. And so many people let this slide. And one of the things I'll give you an example of, if you have an expectation in your company that's supposed to be done daily and it doesn't get done by one person or multiple people, and it goes without being recognized that didn't get done, that establishes a routine and kind of trains your people into saying, hey, that's okay. One time, that's okay. Next time it happens, hey man, it happened last time, it's okay. Nothing's going to really big happen from that. And then what ends up happening is you start to have a culture of acceptance of mediocrity and average. And you can't let that happen. You have to recognize it as soon as possible, and you have to call it out. And sometimes I feel like I'm being a jerk in doing that, a dick for lack of a better term, and busting chops. But I know at the end of the day, the results that are going to come from it. Two things are going to happen. One, the people are going to turn and run and leave your organization. And if they do that, you don't want them a part of your culture anyway, no matter how much they're doing. And number two, they're going to step it up and strive for the greatness, and you're going to bring the greatness out of them. That's the two things that can happen. So once you understand that, then you're not worried about busting chops. You're not worried about being a jerk. It's all about the team and the vision and the culture. So either run or push forward. And that's what you're looking for from people. There's no middle ground. And there's really nothing to be concerned with, because if any of those people that you push and call out leave, you're better placed, because they weren't going to conform to the culture at that point. They weren't going to do what's expected of them to be successful anyway. So that's something that's very important I wanted to bring up. That happens often in an organization on a daily basis. Not everybody's perfect. You got life that happens. Days go differently sometimes. Bad things happen to good people. Things you get caught up in. But at the end of the day, you need to have a little voice that says to you, hey man, I got to get back on track. And it's okay to have a bad day here or there. You're going to have it, but you got to get back on track. And you need to have people holding you accountable to that. So anyway, so let me go into the ways you can create great culture, whether it's your business. I'm going to talk on a business sense, but you can think of it and relate it to your family or your social environment with your friends, or a golf club or whatever, book club, if you're into book clubs. But one of the things that I'm going to go over here is 4 things. Number 1, you have to have gratitude amongst your group. There's got to be a time where you set aside for people to show gratitude to each other. Not just thank you in an email or a phone call. Hey, thank you. That's great. That's important. But I'm talking about on a stage, whether it's your sales meetings or a Facebook group that you have as a company, somewhere, some way, or an intranet like we have at our company, an intranet where you can do shout outs. You need to show gratitude to people. You have to show people you appreciate them. Not just saying it, but show them. And then also be specific with it. Just like when you're writing your goals down, you want to be specific. You need to be specific in your thankfulness of people and your gratitude to people, because it shows that you're really not just saying it. You really deeply mean it. You're genuine with it because you're specifically spelling out what you're thankful for. And you're noticing something that they went above and beyond. So one thing we did in our organization that I would recommend is in our sales meetings each week, we have a gratitude period. We start the meeting with everybody going through one at a time and naming a person on the team and thanking them for something that they did the week before, that they went above and beyond. And nobody's allowed to repeat the same task, so it goes around the room. And it takes up time from our sales meeting. It takes time out of our day. But the time that's taken up is well worth the benefit of the gratitude. One, it's the right thing to do. And it makes people feel good. So that's number 1, gratitude. Very important. It's changed the ballgame for us. Matter of fact, I'll share with you, for those of you watching, it's a book that I read, The $1 Trillion Coach. And it's about Bill Campbell. And he was a football coach at Columbia. Didn't win a lot of games, but that wasn't important to him. What was important to him was people building. And that's what I do every day. We're happen to do mortgages as our vehicle, but I'm in the people building business. I'm trying to build people. I'm trying to build them, get greatness out of them, help them work towards their goals and visions. And that's what it's all about to me. That's why I get up in the morning every day, is to help build people. And I do it with my family, although they're a little bit more difficult to to coach. I think the stubbornness in me is in my kids and my wife as well. And but I'm in the people building business. So Bill Campbell, the $1 trillion coach, coached the founders of Google, Intel, Apple, worked with Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, all the Google founders, and helped them as they grew their company, as they started to dominate. And I never heard of his name before, but I saw this book. It just came out recently. I was in an airport and I grabbed the book and I started reading it. And the gratitude thing was something that I read in that book, and I implemented it in our company. And I did it, not sure of how it was going to take hold, because if you think about going to Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving's all about gratitude, and not eating, by the way. It's not about turkey. It's about gratitude. We go around the table at Thanksgiving. You give something you're thankful for, and the kids are like, oh, man. And some people just don't. They think it's corny. I wasn't sure how that was going to come off. But at the end of the day, everybody loved it. Our processors were being thanked by the loan officers, which a lot of times processors, it's a thankless job sometimes in the mortgage business. There's a lot of work, a lot of tough work that goes into being a processor, a lot of stress. And it's nice to be thanked besides a file bonus or just money. It's nice to be noticed and recognized by your loan officers, by your management, and vice versa. Processors a lot of times aren't thankful for the loan officers for bringing the business in the door. So this worked. This gratitude exercise that we do every week, it works. Takes time, but we're committing and sacrificing time for the end result from that. Number 2, when you develop a culture in a company, a family, relationship, you need to have a vision. You need to have goals, and you need to have clear vision and clear goals. You have to have clarity. And most importantly, besides clarity, is making them huge, unattainable. And that's, of course, I get that from my mentor and the crew at Cardone, Grant Cardone and his team, who, by the way, I can't thank enough for everything that they've done for us. I got a chance to go to 10X headquarters this week and talk to the company and thank them for what they've done and let them know the impact that they've had on us. And speaking of culture, that sales meeting that they have every day has so much energy in it, it probably could power a large city. I mean, literally the clapping that goes on, the hooting and hollering, which is, despite whether you like rah-rah stuff, it works. Energy gets going, your blood gets flowing, and they're celebrating wins. They're supporting each other and lifting each other up. And I had to go there in person. I did testimonial videos for them as well, but I had to go there in person to show them our gratitude for my company, my family, the employees that work with us and their families. And so that was an awesome experience, and I hope they all felt the genuineness behind that. Because in this transition between the two companies that I'm talking about right now, there was some rough times, and I spoke about a time where I broke down in the kitchen and how it felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. It probably wasn't as bad as it felt, but still I felt like I had 20-some employees and their families on my back, and I had to figure something out. And I felt like I was on my own. I know I had a team. I know I had my partners, but I felt like for some reason I just felt like I was on my own, and maybe that's my fault, but I had to thank them for getting the Cardone team for getting us out of that, and Nations Lending for being there for us as a vehicle for us to start building people again, building the culture that we did. So anyway, number 1 is gratitude. Number 2, vision, big, clear vision, goals. And you don't want to make it a situation where you want to, set goals that you can achieve and they're realistic, because listen, we don't want reasonable. We're trying to do reasonable things in our lives. Unreasonable things in our lives. So you need to have unreasonable targets, unreasonable visions, massive, beyond what you can recognize, because really what's embedded in our brains is limits. We all have self-imposed limits and outside imposed limits in our brain. And we can't comprehend what we're really capable of and what our potential is. We just can't. It's just the way it is. So what we have to do is we have to go above and beyond our limitation in our brains, which we think in our brains is unreasonable goals, unreasonable visions, and push it out there harder. Because what happens is then the ceiling in your brain, the limits start to rise because you're starting to reach past what you think is possible. And it works. It works. People that tell you to, establish reasonable goals and attainable goals, they're listening to the limitations in their brain. They're listening to the little man in their head that tells them, nah, you can't go any higher than that. So if you hear somebody telling you that and they're like, oh, you'll be disappointed. Listen, you're going to be disappointed if you set realistic goals and you hit them and you blow them away, or you come up just short of it. And that's when you're going to be disappointed. When you blow away a goal, you set that goal way too low. And you should be disappointed that you should have set it higher, because you could have attained and accomplished so much more. So something to think about with that. But that's number 2. Number 3, what we did was we established an unlimited income potential for all of our employees. And we did that in 2 ways. Because one of the things in in business and the economy in general, there's a lot of people struggling with their bills and their money. They don't understand money. They live paycheck to paycheck. They're in debt. They feel trapped in a job where they can't go anywhere. They feel like they could be in a wrong vehicle. And what we wanted to do for our culture is we wanted to establish a place where people didn't feel trapped, didn't feel like it was a prison, and feel like they were in the wrong vehicle to attain their financial goals. So what we did was we took the limits off. I talk about removing limits from your brain. We might as well take the limits off of income. So all of our loan officers, they can produce as much as they want. They can make as much as they want. They're not limited to one state. They can get licensed in several states, 40-some states. Then that left us with our support staff, processing and junior processors and loan officer assistants. So what we did was we created a system where they could get licensed. We would pay for their licensing, the support staff, and they could produce as well. They could ask for friends, family, people that they talk to on the phone throughout the day when they're doing their job for business every day. When they get done the call, all they have to say is, hey, oh, by the way, do you know anybody that could use some honest help with a mortgage? Or do you know anybody that's buying or selling in the next 6 months? I mean, I'd be happy to help. We'd be happy to put our best people on and help you out. All you got to do is end the conversation with that short little question, and you get business. It's that simple. It's not magic. It just works. So by letting them get licensed and allowing them to do that, we have processors that are making more money, an unlimited amount of money that they want. It's up to them. So they don't just have to make their salary or file bonus. They can make as much as they want commission-wise. And Then you might hear some say, well, I'm stuck in this and I have to work so much for my processing job that I really don't have the time to produce. So we don't even stop them from there. So if they don't want to process anymore, they'd like to be a full-time loan officer or even up a sales manager or branch manager. We would never, ever hold anybody back. You have to allow people to grow in business and relationships. And one of the things with this is if you think about a flower in a pot and a flower that grows exponentially and you have it in a little pot, at some point that flower is going to die or break the pot if you don't put it and move it to a bigger pot. So that's the way we think, is that we got to let people grow. We have to let them expand. We have to provide an environment and a culture for them to do that. So there's not one person in our organization that can't move up and have unlimited income potential. So that was number 3, unlimited income potential. That's changed the ball game for our culture. And now we are all striving, and we set a big vision in our culture with to $100 million a month, which might be too low, actually, but $100 million a month in loan volume. And since we've increased that vision, our average months have gone up 4 times. So I think it starts with that declaration first, and then it goes from there. And everything after we made that decision and that commitment, we started our actions, our words, our thoughts all started going towards that big giant 100 million goal. And so whatever you're doing in life that you want to accomplish, write it down morning and night, commit to it, decide to it, and then give me some feedback. By the way, you guys can connect with me on social media. I'm all over Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it, I'm on it. We have the What Are You Made Of group, which is a private group just for listeners to this show and anybody that wants to engage with me and our crew. But give me some feedback on some goals that you set for yourself and some commitments and declarations that you set for yourself. And I'll help support you. I'll root for you. I'll give you some feedback and help you out. Our group will do that. That's what this is designed for. It's designed to create a culture where everybody's lifting each other up, cheering for each other, celebrating wins. Because it works. And, we got to constantly work at it, though. So, and then number 4, the final thing was accountability. You have to have accountability when you set a vision and a goal and you're trying to create a culture. There's got to be systems in place to hold people accountable. One is people holding each other accountable, management keeping each other accountable. There's got to be some kind of care in that, of people caring about what's going on and watching to make sure people are on pace. Because sometimes people subconsciously just fall off of what their mission is. And so it helps to have them kind of re-guided back onto track where they need to be. And you know what? Sometimes it takes a little bit of, hey man, let's go. You don't have to be so nice all the time with it, because some people need that. Because if you think about this way, and I know you've heard the story before, there's 2 little people in your head. There's a negative person and a positive person. And that negative person is trying to pull you down, is trying to quiet the positive man or woman. And if you let that happen, no good comes from it. And the further and further you let that happen, the further and further off your mission you get. So it's good to get that little tough love in there sometimes, and let the people know that you understand that their negative thought processor in their head is winning with them, and you're not going to buy into it. And I had this today. It happened with one of our employees that works with us. Something was supposed to be done by 10 o'clock this morning, and they sent me a text that said they're not going to be able to do it because X, Y, and Z. And I told them that that's not acceptable and it's got to be done today. And if I have this conversation again, they're going to have to find another place to work. Because as a team, we all do this particular thing before 10 o'clock in the morning. And one time you get that, doesn't get done, and you're like, hey, this has got to be done. 2 times, it's like, all right, this is the last chance. 3 times you're gone. Because we have a team environment, everybody's supposed to be on the same page, and we have to be accountable. And we're not doing anybody any favors by letting them slide. Because when you let someone slide that's supposed to be doing something, then in your mind, you're triggering and having a little training session that it's okay to not accomplish something and not do what you're supposed to do. Then you start being more likely to not hit your targets and follow through on your mission. And you don't know it's happening. It's subconscious. Subconscious in your mind, you have these little training sessions that go on, and you got to make it conscious of it. So accountability, keeping stats, anything that matters, keep track of it. Watch and make sure it's going up all the time. If it's not going up all the time, you need to make changes. You need to make adjustments. You need to get rid of people or add people. So keeping stats. Have a leaderboard. If you're in a situation at business and you're doing sales or production, you need to have a leaderboard. You need to be watching it daily, hourly even sometimes, and putting it out there because it'll wake people up. Share it with a group. Share if there's any applications being done or demos or how much prospecting is actually getting done, how many calls are being made. It's so important, man. You got to watch it. And if you don't do it hourly or even half the day or daily, and you wait till the end of the week or the end of the month, for crying out loud, it's too late to fix. The quicker you can get that out, to watch your stats, watch the numbers, the KPIs they call them. The sooner you can watch those things, the quicker you can make adjustments and fix them and get back on track. So that's a big little nugget there for you right there. That's watch your stats sooner rather than later, so you have time to correct. We talked about manning up. We talk about that in our group. Even if you're not in a management position, a person that's around you that's not doing what they're supposed to do affects you. So if that affects you and the team, and you're buying into the team, and you care about yourself, it is your duty and obligation to call that person out respectfully, of course. And we all have an understanding in our group that we're on a mission here. We're going to this place. And if somebody's not, we all have the understanding that we're going to be a family and we're going to call each other out respectfully and put them back on track. And when it happens, we're not going to get defensive about it. We're going to revert back to our mission and our goal of what we're trying to accomplish so that it's understood the reason that it's coming out this way. So those are the 4 things to develop a good culture in business and family. 1, gratitude. 2, vision, big vision, clear goals. By the way, with number 2 with the goals and vision, and I'm in a mentor program right now with Cardone, and Jared Glant was talking about this. When you have clarity and you set these big goals, you also have to set a situation where you can have some quick wins, little wins along the way to start to build a momentum. And that's that snowball, building that snowball that I talk about. You have to have that. You can't be putting targets out there that are so far out with no wins in between because it's hard to stay the course. So I forgot about that. I made a note here. I just wanted to bring that one up. But anyway, that's what we got today, guys. I got to figure out a title for this podcast because it's about culture, about building a culture. I might put the quote that I made for this as the title of this one in post-production. So anyway, you know what? Do me a favor. Comment in this bottom here what I should title this podcast episode number 4 about culture. And I'll choose one of you. And if I choose yours, I will send you a $100 gift card. How about that? So I'll do that. And connect with me, guys. Engage with me. Please subscribe to the podcast. And I look forward to engaging with you guys further. Thank you again to Nations Lending, Home Loans Made Human, for sponsoring this podcast. And I'm looking forward to continuing this mission and this journey with you guys, with my stories, to share with you, to inspire and help others. So have a great rest of the week. Thank you for being a part of the What Are You Made Of podcast. So that you don't miss future episodes, please rate and subscribe to the What Are You Made Of podcast on your favorite listening or viewing apps, and follow me on your favorite social media platforms. I would love to hear your stories and past experiences and engage with you further.